when I had a church leader to tell me about our leadership model is consensus decision making. Because you got to remember, those institutional forces and the individual personal preferences are all in play for whoever's making these decisions. Consensus is the road to mediocrity.
Mm,
Like, you want to be mediocre, church? Have a consensus based decision making model because
mm,
it's confusing. When the Bible is telling us to be unified, which I know we're going to get into later, it's not we all have the same mind about every decision. It's we're using the same framework to make the decisions we're making, not that we all these little opinions we have about programs and ministries and music and all these things.
Well, hey everyone, welcome to the Intentional Churches podcast. My name is Erin, and I'm here with my good friends Doug and Bart. What's up, Doug and Bart? How are we today?
Glorious,
Good.
Glorious.
Yeah.
groovy,
Groovy and good. We've got lots of G words. We're glorious, groovy, and good.
alliterative. See, my little Appalachian grammar. I'm a walking thesaurus.
Wow, amazing, amazing.
Yes.
Well, thanks for jumping on. If you don't know Doug and Bart, they are the OG masterminds behind Intentional Churches. And they're here today we're kind of walking our way through this book on radical alignment. And we've been kind of tackling a chapter at a time to sort of dive into the weeds a little bit more around some of the things that the IC community has been exploring recently. That's one of the things I love about IC these days is it's actually not just you two, Doug and Bart, like calling all the shots and having all these great insights, but your insights are coming from the trenches. They're coming from real people, real church leaders doing the thing and exploring things along the way. And you're just helping all of us see those things. So we're going to jump into the conversation today around kind of what the whole book is about, this word alignment. And so would one of you like to just take a swing before we jump into the conversation? What do you mean by alignment? Because when I think of that word, I think about like the tires on my car. So can you help me know, what do you mean by alignment?
Art, jump
So,
in, man. This is the
um,
chapter. I think all of our listeners need to understand that this is the chapter. It really is kind of this defining learning moment, right, Bart?
yeah, it, it's it's been a long time, in process where we kind of discovered what's the unlock as we kind of watch churches, you know, uh, really get after the Great Commission and uh, really benefit from the work we started. I think we've been talking about this a little bit, but it goes back a while. All of our learnings about church leadership because we knew we had an idea of what it would look like to create a community of churches, potentially hundreds of churches collaborating around the Great Commission. But then you try to do that. You create a toolbox and you start that effort, and you kind of listen to them and you see what's going on inside their churches, and you try to learn from it and advance. And that's what we've been doing. We're kind of a learning community, and so yeah, the word alignment. I think that if I had to just use that word, it's not a very church leadership type, you know, uh, uh, what's going to say, focused word. But at the end of the day, if I just had to insert a word in place of alignment, it would be mutual ownership of a mission. In this case, the Great Commission. And so, yeah, alignment in general is the thing that keeps trains moving in the same direction. It keeps an engine in all of its coordinated activities working. It keeps our bodies um, sort of producing energy for a purpose. It's there's a lot of analogies about alignment kind of in nature, I believe, and nature by itself is aligned because of God's holding it together. And so alignment in the case of the church is sort of looks like that. It's like a group of people joining together for the accomplishment of a mission or purpose with which we believe Jesus gave us, and to the ends of of accomplishing a vision ultimately of heaven and reconciling the world to himself in the case of God and the purpose of the church. So, yeah, we'll talk more about this idea of ownership. I think we can almost interchange those words alignment and ownership. I know Doug's kind of taught me a lot about that concept.
Well, I this this really is the crux, and it may not seem we're using this word alignment, and a lot of the people who tune in for this podcast are, what do you mean? I and then I want to ask you both this question to give some stories. The greatest headwind, there are really two things at play, like gravitational pulls in church leadership when you're a church leader, and that lead you into complete misalignment. Number one is the individualization. Everybody has a different idea about church, and usually it's through a self-centered perspective, especially in America. And so it becomes like, what is my church doing for me? What are you providing for me? What are you doing the things I like? Are you, it is a very self-centered. And I don't think people do that. Most people that come to church do that on purpose. They just haven't been taught really that no, that is Christ called you to die to yourself and not be codependent, because that's not truly dying to self. The second biggest part, and we talk about this all the time on the podcast, is institutional thinking. It is embedded in our psyche, in our subconscious. When your job becomes leading a church, it messes with your head, and you start making decisions as if the organization wins and grows people in Jesus and transforms hearts, or programs do. But these two great forces are at play. Even if your church is growing dynamically and fast, like crazy. We just heard of a church that did beach baptisms of 190 people on a weekend. The senior pastor told me, he's like, it was organized chaos. Like, that is a fast growing misalignment. These two forces, individualized preferences and institutional thinking, is a battle that's real for every church leader every day you go to work. Do you agree, Erin, or not? Like, do you not feel this?
Oh my gosh. I agree, Doug. I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think we're all going to go on a journey. Here's the question I was going to ask you guys. So this was the big aha in the first 1,000 or so churches we've worked with, is this misalignment thing is for real, and it's more destructive than crises in church, moral failures. These are all awful, and they get publicized in the media, but misalignment is really the thing that hinders the advancement of the gospel. I was going to ask you guys, can you give an example, like of a staff member, board member, or congregant in recent memory who expressed to you one of these two things, this individualized reasoning of why we should do something different in church or add a program, um, or this institutional thinking and how it guided us toward what was actually a bad idea, even though it felt like it was a great one? Anything come to mind for either of you guys that you've seen lately?
Yeah, I can go. I got a long list, Doug. But I'll just give one example. We during COVID, sorry to use that word. I know that's a buzzword. Uh,
Ugh.
during COVID though, I think a lot of church leaders will resonate with this. We stopped doing a lot of things. And one of the things that I think we did well was we didn't add everything back that we eliminated during COVID. And that was really important. But I will be honest with you, over the last year or two, things just start creeping back in. Things that had been long gone for even a few years, I mean, we're, what, 6 years post-COVID now? It's amazing
Six.
the things,
It's 6 years.
the things that still want to creep their way back in, and people who are around who have sort of been around for a long time, who have just been sort of waiting for the moment that their program of choice is going to find its way back. And so we've had multiple challenging conversations around this. And the institutional thinking says, okay, well, these people are upset that we don't have this, so we should offer something for them, which then creates that consumeristic mindset, because it goes back to the question that people are asking, well, what do you have for me? Do you have a men's group for me? Do you have a young adult group for me or for my child? Do you have fill in the blank, right? And so I have been experiencing these people who I think they've just been they've tried to be a little long-suffering and just wait for us to break down a little bit and add back the program that died in COVID.
Yeah.
And with we have a pretty new young staff, their temptation is to fix it by adding a program or adding a staff member, both
Yeah.
of which are institutional thinking.
Yep. Yep.
And so that can create misalignment like really
Yeah.
quickly.
I recently heard a board member for a church, I will not say where, say this phrase: "Are those new believers you want to reach going to pay for this seating that we need to buy?" I mean, literally, like passive aggressively, like
Yeah.
amping up to try to manipulate. Bart, do you have any good ones?
Oh, I was trying to think of specifics. You and I've worked with so many churches. I just think of the long list of like the debates, the meetings that go long. I think of things like Aaron was talking about the desire to bring back my thing, my church, my program, um, just confused language, that goes on. Um, just in general, just a lot of symptoms, long meetings, um, just symptoms again and again that we see that tell us there is a lack of alignment when it comes to the mission. That it's, I don't know what to say except that it's become, like you said, sort of internally focused or consumeristic or organizationally focused, like the organization's the one that's on the hook to accomplish the mission. So we've talked about this in previous episodes, but this lack of alignment to the mission just kind of rears its ugly head in lots of ways. We talk about that in the book in several ways. So yeah, I could go on. It's just like
I just
too
want to
many
add,
examples.
yeah, to what Bart said, just to double click on something that I think a lot of the church leaders listening will resonate is the language thing. That we're using the same words and meaning different things.
Oh,
We're
yeah.
doing that across, like from church to church, and we're doing that internally.
Hey, yep.
So we just did a little bit of an audit with our staff
Hmm.
around some key DNA statements we have, and me and our senior pastor literally sat with each team and just asked them to describe what they mean when they say some of our key phrases. You guys, it was fascinating. I mean, if we have 5 teams, we have 5 definitions. And these are key core statements we use all the time. And we mean 5 different things depending on the team you're
Isn't that
on.
amazing? Oh, wow.
Amazing.
Man,
And
I
yeah,
would record that kind of conversation, load
yeah.
it in AI, and
Yes.
like get some outputs out of that thing. Wow.
So just for the church leaders listening, like I would say, even there's a lot of different ways to be misaligned, but even the sneaky one is your language, because you're
Yeah.
using words. I use these words all the time, but have you checked for understanding recently across your staff team, even
So
let alone the
so
congregation?
So Aaron, let me let me drill in. So you guys, because I know you're trying to create a a culture around the things you believe in, which is obviously what we talk a lot about on this podcast at Canyon, right? So you've created language, statements, almost like mantras, right?
Mhm.
That you
Mhm.
talk about. Okay. So over the course of, I don't know how long it's been, you can tell me, probably years, you've
Mhm.
tried to like use these to create the culture, to create the environment, the leadership,
Mhm.
sort of like direction and what's the word to say? Culture, really, that you
Mhm.
want. And then you go to audit that because you're using these as leaders and you're in leadership, and you audit that with the team, and you find out that those very things you've used to like create DNA alignment and direction are defined in lots. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So
Like
we've
all
had
over
these
the
statements for about 6 years that we kind of were recreating coming out of COVID.
Huh.
And we use these, when I tell you we use them all the time. All these are not like every now and
Can
then,
you
twice a
can you
year, we
give
pull
one
them out of the hat.
just what's an
Yeah.
example just of one? Yeah.
Contribution from everyone is greater than expertise from a few. We say
Okay.
that all the time, meaning we want to unleash the priesthood of all believers. We want to unleash the gifting of all people. That's better than a few experts doing all the work. Well, I just found out that half our staff believes contribution from everyone just means multiple people participated. They brought a contribution. So it's moved from we equip the saints to bring their best gifting to I asked volunteers to help me instead of doing it all by myself. Those are not the same thing. Those are not the same thing at all. There you go. Language drift, right?
Yeah,
So
well, it's not just
redefining.
language drift. It's like, it tells me that alignment, and this we talk about that in this chapter, in the book. It takes patience,
Yes.
one, and then you have to tend it like a garden,
Mhm.
you know?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
you have to stay after it,
Mhm.
not in a heavy-handed way, but just,
Totally.
there's been statements out there like vision drifts and stuff like
Yeah.
that, vision leaks or whatever. But it's like, yeah, it's just the way the gospel in the world came in as such a disruptive force, right? Okay. So here we are in the church whose mission is to redeem the world to the mission of Jesus and to its purpose, to people's purpose in life in Christ. And and here we are as leaders in it, and think about the forces that are tugging it sideways all the time, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Not that you have to have a quiz where everybody's got to say and be automatons, but that it is got to be tended like a garden,
And
a
these are
good,
these are
yeah.
not these couple of truths that you must be patient to achieve alignment, and the understand that there is no arrival
Mhm.
ever. You will not
Yeah,
Mhm.
right.
arrive is countercultural to church leadership today because church
Mhm.
leadership wants things fast. And church leadership wants, to not deal with an audit like you just did, to because
Yeah,
then we have
well,
to slow down. But anyway,
Yeah.
all the examples Doug would say, like, I just think if you look at I don't know, if you're a leader in a church, young leader, you're looking at examples, and it's sort of like the Instagram of the leadership would look like we're all just on the same page. And even it's so easy to edit externally the image of what a church. I go to a great church, um, but they're going to put forward a story that if I was a church leader looking at their story, I would believe it's all aligned all the time, constantly going in the same direction, saying the same things, believing the same things. And the truth is, if you really get under the hood, it's got to be patiently stewarded and managed because the forces of working against really the gospel and the truth are pulling us all sideways. That includes your team, that includes your
Mhm.
staff. And so to keep us on point with the Great Commission as a team, man, it's almost like it just hits me that it's like an every meeting thing. It's not like
Mhm.
an every, quarterly or 6-month thing or annual retreat reset, it's like all the time. It's got to be
yeah,
managed
yeah.
properly.
Or once you get it on banners in the parking lot or in a
Yeah.
Totally.
lobby,
Yeah, and hear me
as
say,
if
like,
that's the arrival.
it would be easy for me as a church leader to just be frustrated that my team is experiencing these in different ways, and I'm complicit. So, I have no condemnation for our team. They're doing their
No,
best,
no.
right?
Right.
That's a
Yes.
reflection on, you know, "Oh, okay, that's a learning. We mean different things." So, anyway.
Well, in this chapter, we do a little your team could do a little audit, you as a reader on, just some symptoms of misalignment.
Mhm.
But one of the ones in the list for me, and I don't know what you all think about this, these words get thrown around in church all the time. Unity,
Mhm.
alignment, sometimes it's coming along. Um, Consensus. We go to a church and they make decisions by consensus, meaning everybody has to agree. I read this article once years ago when I had a church leader to tell me about our leadership model is consensus decision making. Because you got to remember those institutional forces and the individual personal preferences are all in play for whoever's making these decisions. Consensus is the road to mediocrity.
Mm,
Like, you wanna be mediocre, church? Have a consensus-based decision-making model because
mm,
it's confusing. When the Bible is telling us to be unified, which I know we're gonna get into later, it's not we all have the same mind about every decision. It's we're using the same framework to make the decisions we're making, not that we all these little opinions we have about programs and ministries and music and all these things. That is not what it's talking about. But anyway, I don't, you guys have any thoughts on some of these symptoms things we've outlined, or the unity consensus alignment kind of conversation?
Oh, I would say if there's not a tug of war going on, even in a church is kind of like a family that believes if you're not working out your own way to hit the target, when it comes to the mission, um, then you don't own it because you're owning it internally. Like, how do I align to the mission and then how do we? So there should be this tug of war going on, which kind of feels wobbly and like we can go in the wrong direction. So if you're not feeling tension, that's like danger, 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 like I feel like. So some of what you're saying, Doug, is like I believe healthy tension pulls us ultimately together.
mm.
So I think there should be some of this healthy tension to struggle for the way forward when we're all trying to align to the mission. So that's just one thought that came to mind. I don't know if it applies perfectly, but that's a thought that hit me.
Yeah, I would say that's good, Bart, because one of the things, like the leadership mindsets that was offered to me that I think is right in alignment with this is like, I think when we look at the symptoms of misalignment, they might just feel like individual isolated problems to go solve. Oh, we have long meetings, so we should go solve the long meeting problem. Or
Mm,
we have a consensus based model, so we should go solve that problem. When instead it's like zooming out and not just going and playing whack a mole with individual problems, but saying, are all of these
yes.
leading to a greater issue? And I think leadership is far more about managing tensions than solving problems. So everybody wants us as leaders to solve problems for them. And in my role as executive pastor, if I wanted to, I could solve 10 problems every single day for people. And that's honestly what people want because they don't know what else to ask for. They have this problem that's pressing on them, right? And some of those things are the symptoms listed in this chapter. And yet, as leaders, we have to learn how to manage tensions, not just solve problems,
Yeah.
but also to zoom out and look at the whole list and not just go after one by one because they might all
Yeah.
be pointing to something bigger.
Yep. Right on. And we said it just a few minutes ago, but I'm going to use the phrase we use around IC. When you don't have an aligning tension point, like we call it true north, a true north. And we are making the case in this book that true north is actually biblical. It is
Yes.
well defined and crystal clear once you have eyes to see it in the New Testament. You, if you don't have that as a team, then like you said, you're playing whack-a-mole and problem solving that is being driven by personalized preferences and institutional thinking. And so you'll never one of my favorite phrases in leadership that I use all the time with our team, and I got it from somebody else, is what is the actual problem we're trying to solve here? Because it's
Mhm.
usually not the thing you brought to me. It's
Yeah,
usually going to be 4 or 5 rounds of going, is this really what we're trying to solve here?
totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
I was just thinking about the fact of how healthy it is when we're talking about alignment to not expect that everybody has the exact same answer in a way, like we were talking about earlier. Like, I'm kind of contradicting myself. It's interesting you have to tend the understanding, but really it comes down, in my opinion, to the reasoning. But if somebody is reasoning the right way in one of our teams, elders, staff, um, even our congregants, but yet they're coming to a different conclusion, that might be Holy Spirit driven, but yet it's really the way they think. And, we created this rubric around thinking and passion and equipping in this chapter. And ultimately, I think that's when my heart would leap is when we're all thinking about it the right way. we may not be equally equipped in our inputs. In other words, I think about it like a family. Like, I want my kids to be thinking through their life decisions, like with the right sequence and ideas in mind, but they don't have all of the life experience yet, and that's true in life in Christ, to come to the exact same conclusion. So I think one of the things we're looking for is, in my opinion, when it comes to alignment, is how are you thinking through to the ends of the mission God's given us, the decision we're trying to make. And that's basically going to mean that if you're just seeking consensus, like in an elder board, um, you'll never, you know what I mean? That's a really bad goal, is just to all get to the same, because that means power had to like win and not thinking. At the end of the day, you can allow ideals to win, and where you can force outcomes. And I think in the case of our churches, a lot of times we try to force outcomes and we don't try to shape thinking to the
Mm.
ends of the mission. And we let the personality and the experience kind of be what shapes someone's ideas on a decision. So anyway, that's what came to my mind. I'm just, hey man, we're just riffing here and sharing what the Spirit's kind of leading us to. That's what hit me.
Yeah, that's great. So in the chapter, it talks about like different aspects of alignment, which I think is important because there's personal alignment and then there's church alignment and then how, how that starts on leadership teams and staff teams and then moves to the congregation. You guys kind of stage some of that. What do you want to say about the different like aspects of alignment, like personal alignment and then church alignment? Like what feels helpful or really important to like double click on from the book?
Yeah, I think for me, in church leadership, you've heard this always across the big five, attend one, serve one, group one, give one, reach one, those things that, those check boxes like that, we would ask questions around, are you setting the example for the congregation? Like, there was a time, and I was an executive pastor where, there was all kinds of political stuff around it going on, but very few, if anyone, knew what people were giving. And then we find out when we start to look, there's a couple board members not giving financially. The question I have not had very many churches ask is, how are we doing as staff in owning the Great Commission personally? And what is the work or effort that we can pray for each other and celebrate together as we're planting and watering? And I think this is the big aha. We got to come back, and yes, giving's important, being in a group's important, all this. But we need to be asked, every staff member, board member, and key leader in your church, you need to be having the conversation on a regular cadence, how your Great Commission activity in your relational networks is going on a regular weekly or biweekly thing. And it really comes down to personal ownership, starting with the church leadership of the Great Commission, and making that an example. It doesn't sound like this big aha, but I'm telling you, it is life-changing for a church when a staff and leadership gets their head around this personal ownership thing. Bart, I don't know if you're a pastor's kid, man. You've been doing the church forever, right? Like, getting to this conclusion that it has to start with you. We don't want you to start with strategic planning. We don't want you to start with uh clarity of mission, vision, values. We actually just want to start with personal. This is what IC is saying now with a megaphone. It starts with personal ownership of the Great Commission. How has this changed your thinking and, church generations of church leadership you've seen?
Yeah, I put some of that in the book. I think that you made me think of something I wasn't really thinking about until you talked about the being raised in pastors. As a pastor's kid, I was raised around people that lived it out in my mom and dad. So it, for me, and I think this would be true. I'm kind of thinking that this whole episode, it's like a family and a church kind of like are paralleling to me as I talk about things. It's like, um, in the family, when they lived it out, the fact that they lived it out made it uh, authentic and real, and made me want to be a part of it. Right, that's one thing. They set the example. So now let's go to our team. Like, the leaders have to set the example of living it out. Um, when it comes to alignment and start. And then so in the book, we had to think about, well, what is the biblical model for alignment? Where does it start in terms of personal ownership? And so we created this little model I referenced earlier, the idea that how you reason what you care about in your heart, and then how you actually are equipped to use your gifts and your skills in the kingdom and in the church is an important model to begin to shape. And what I realized, to your point, Doug, if there was inconsistency, I'll go back to my family. If there was inconsistency in my family, in other words, I saw my mom and dad reasoning, care about, or doing in terms of action things that didn't align, it would have thrown me off, right? I would have been greatly sent sideways in terms of my understanding, because that dissonance is a destructive force. So now let's go inside of ourselves. If the way I think and what I believe in my heart and the way I act doesn't align, it'll tear me apart. I mean, ultimately. So when you go to the church, and our belief that the Great Commission is the mission of the church, if the way I think and what I care about, especially when it comes to reaching lost people, the mission I believe of Jesus to seek and save the lost, and my actions don't align, it starts to tear me apart. So you put all these things together when it comes to alignment. I got to search my own heart when it comes to alignment, and my own alignment of mind, heart, and strength. And then ultimately, each of us as leaders on a team have to do the same thing. And if you get to the heart of alignment, even though we started by riffing on mantras and tending alignment, it's really more even like internal and fundamental than that. It comes down to the way we think, what we care about, and how we behave and act. And so when we get that individually, there is peace and joy that comes. And then when we each as a team mutually begin to get that, when it comes to the Great Commission, now we're starting to get at the heart of what radical alignment really is all about. And so that's why we said the surprising journey, if you really had to boil down the chapter, is the surprise is how personal it starts. And it must start for us then to get to a radically aligned church or an intentional church. So it's kind of a long riff, man, but didn't expect to go to the family piece. But that's good. I got to celebrate mom and dad a little bit. That's awesome.
Nice. It's good, man. What I love about this season, this new season of IC that we're in, is the tools now being built off this very scriptural foundation. Bart, this book has a lot of scripture in it, man. It's like, it's very, you put a
Yeah.
ton of scripture in this thing. This new season of IC is bringing tools alongside that help you as a church leader, like the brand new assessment that we've been beta testing. It's fantastic because it's making people audit and think about their calendar and their checkbook and how much of that is aligned, like real world stuff. Like, not just theory, but if you go look at your calendar and did an audit or your checkbook, would it show that you have great commission planting and watering going on personally in your relational networks? And to be able to compile that up for a team so you could see gaps, it's just an exciting season. I can't wait to see some of the changes even I'm seeing in preaching as you are able to identify this is what's really going on in ourselves and our leadership and our congregation. And now we can go attack that appropriately and not just wonder, where are my people at on this alignment thing to personal ownership of the Great Commission. So,
Well, you were the one, I think, Doug, a few months ago, maybe even a few years ago, began to say that's what the idea of alignment was all about, was personal ownership, and of the Great Commission of everyone or every follower in your church. And that's really what IC's about. And so when we dove into how to write the prequel to what we're about, uh, we started to search scripture, to your point, and say, is that really is what does that mean? I don't know where God gave that to you, by the way, but it just caused me to dig in and go, oh my goodness. I Not only is Doug right, that was no surprise. You're right a lot. It's more like this is the theme of those carrying the gospel to the world in the New Testament, right? And thus watching the real world working out of the Great Commission in action and the passion of the followers in the New Testament. And I came to believe that books like Philippians are actually, if you look at the subtext, it's a group of people written to the elders and deacons in the salutation. It's written to a group of people seeking to accomplish the mission of Jesus in whatever time horizon that was meant to be. And the joy that would come, if you read it, the joy that would come in the carrying out of the mission together.
Yeah.
That's that. And we talk about that in the book, man. And I was so,
It's
a
so
friend
insightful.
gave us that insight. I'm like, that is so true.
It's so insightful, man. It's been life-changing for me, because, again, in my Western American mind, most of my life, I've read Philippians through a self-centered perspective. How does this apply to me? Not, this is a book written to a group of people who were owning the Great Commission personally and, being encouraged by it and finding joy through it.
that your
Yeah.
joy may be complete, right?
Mhm.
So we've read that so personally that the goal was my joy. The completeness of the joy is not just me, it's us, it's we, and it's ultimately celebrating the victory and the vision that he gave us in John 17 when he prayed the prayer. When Jesus, it's just, oh gosh, I'm 56. You'd think I'd have realized all this. It's like it's all tied together. All those followers went back to those words that were repeated again and again by those early followers. I'm sure when they knew the prayer he had prayed or it was recorded in the book of John, John knew it. And so that you would be one, you know, that you would be on mission together. And that being on mission together, you would find the joy, that your joy would be complete. And now you've got a group in Philippi carrying out the very message of the Savior, and you got exhortation there in the words of Philippians, I believe really rooted in the idea of accomplishing the mission together. And then being together and celebrating in heaven what that would mean. So anyway, yeah, it's been a profound journey, this idea of radical alignment.
I'm curious, we're running out of time, but for each of you, if you could think, specifically about this chapter, some of the things we've talked about today around alignment, the headwind of misalignment, what we're aligning around, all the things. Uh, and if you could offer just like one piece of advice to a church leader fighting for alignment, I know the chapter outlines a lot, but just like from your own heart, what would each of you say in a phrase or two? Doug, go ahead.
I would say it's worth it. There will be a cost if your church has not been fighting for alignment to the Great Commission. People will leave and they will
Mm-hmm.
criticize you, but it's worth it
Mm-hmm.
because we see now we have churches all over the place. I had somebody on the podcast a while back, had some rough times in ministry. He's a senior pastor. And it's he said, this is the most fun ministry I've ever done. And they're growing fast, and it's because he is practice. It's worth it. And it's, and the thing I'm going to encourage all of us, stop trying to microwave what is supposed to be a transformational process for all of us.
Mhm.
There is no microwaving it. Just be patient and don't try to arrive, and
Mhm.
it's worth it.
That's great. Art, how about you?
Well, you kinda stole a little bit of my thunder. I was like, or my ideas, not that it was thunderous, was that, yeah, just make it intrinsically personal and,
Mm.
um, challenge your team and yourself to basically think like he thought when it came to the one to be reached and the mission that he gave us, and then challenge your motivations and work to be equipped and ready on any given day, which he says he's given us everything we need to do the mission.
Mm.
So we don't need to worry about weakness per se, but just waking up diligently to be ready and then challenging all of our teams to do the same. And to Doug's point, that's going to take a lot of patience, both personally and as a team, and you won't be able to force it to happen. So every team is going to go on its own unique journey. We talk in this chapter about the church that's in a stalemate, the church that feels a little wobbly, the church that's advancing and can feel like they're achieving things. But at the end of the day, if that alignment of the individuals to the mission and then, one individual, each of us, and then mutually, it'll be just a temporary victory. So, and then maybe all the way back to the beginning, be diligent every single day to check your mind, your heart, and your strength to that end. And just don't think that once you got it, you got it, because the forces are blowing that want to. The enemy doesn't want any of this to happen. Is working inside of our teams in our lives and our families to make sure this gets pulled apart. So make it a daily practice to think and keep this in check. And yeah, our community to me finally is wonderful what's emerging because it is a community of leaders learning to think this way, behave this way, support one another, encourage one another, and keep each other strong and on task in it. And uh, just you need a community to do this with. To Paul's point uh, in the book of Philippians, let's do this together, right? Let's accomplish the mission together, that our joy may be complete. So that's my word.
That's great. Well, Doug and Bart, thanks for the ways that you're helping churches move in the direction of alignment. Thanks for this conversation. And to our church leaders, one kind of cool invitation is IC actually offers alignment workshops. And so you can check one of those out live at a church in your region or online in a cohort. And you can find out more information on that at intentionalchurches.com. So thanks for listening today. And we'll see you next time on the Intentional Churches podcast.